Winston Churchill, the lion who never gave up. In the darkest days of human history, when the world stood on the edge of destruction, one man's courage became the light of hope. His name was Winston Churchill, the lion who never gave up. He was a man of words, a man of action, and a man who inspired a nation when everything seemed lost. But before he became the symbol of courage, he was just a boy, misunderstood, stubborn, and full of dreams. Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was born in 1874 in Blenheim Palace, Oxfordshire, England. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was a famous politician. His mother, Jenny Jerome, was an American woman known for her charm and beauty. Little Winston grew up surrounded by privilege, but also by loneliness. His parents were rarely around, and he spent most of his childhood at boarding schools. At school, he wasn't a top student. He disliked strict rules and boring lessons. Teachers called him lazy, undisciplined, and distracted. But inside, he carried something powerful, a deep hunger to prove himself. He loved history, battles, and heroes of the past. He once said, "History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it." As a young man, Churchill joined the British Army. He was eager to see the world, to test himself in danger. He served in India, Sudan, and South Africa, not just as a soldier, but also as a writer. He sent reports from war zones to London newspapers, describing battles with vivid detail and emotion. His words made him famous long before his politics did. After returning home, he entered politics at the age of 25. He was confident, outspoken, and never afraid to challenge others. Sometimes his own party disagreed with him, so he boldly switched sides. That's how daring he was. He believed in his ideas more than in party loyalty. But Churchill's journey was never easy. He made mistakes, lost elections, and faced humiliation. He was mocked in newspapers and attacked by opponents. Yet every time he fell, he stood up again. Because he believed, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Then came the storm, the Second World War. In 1939, Hitler's army invaded Europe. Country after country fell. Millions of lives were lost, and soon Britain stood alone against the Nazi Empire. The sky over London was filled with enemy planes. The nights were dark, the sirens screamed, and bombs fell over homes and streets. People were terrified. They needed a leader who could give them strength. And that's when Winston Churchill became Prime Minister in 1940. He was 65 years old, tired, overweight, and often sick. But his spirit was unbreakable. He told his people, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat." Those words struck like thunder in the hearts of the British. When others talked about surrender, Churchill shouted about victory. When others feared defeat, he reminded them of courage. He said, "We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender." These words weren't just speeches. They were fire. They turned despair into determination. Mothers cried listening to him. Soldiers found new strength in his voice. Even children believed that Britain could win because of him. He worked day and night, planning strategies, meeting generals, writing speeches. He drank tea, smoked his cigars, and stayed awake till dawn, refusing to sleep while his country fought for survival. The war dragged on for 6 long years. Cities were destroyed, families were torn apart. But Churchill never stopped believing that freedom would win. He said, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen." He inspired not only Britain, but the entire world. His friendship with American President Franklin D. Roosevelt helped bring the United States into the war, a decision that changed history. Together, they planned to free Europe from Hitler's control. And finally, in 1945, victory arrived. Germany surrendered, the world celebrated, and Britain roared with pride. Churchill stood as the symbol of victory, the lion who led his people through fire. But life, as always, had its ironies. Soon after the war ended, the British people voted him out of office. The man who saved the nation was replaced by another leader. It was a shock, but Churchill accepted it with grace. He didn't complain. He didn't quit. He once said, "You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks." He moved on. In his later years, Churchill spent time writing books and painting landscapes. He found peace in colors and words. His writings about the war and his life were so powerful that he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1953. He became not just a leader of war, but a philosopher of courage, peace, and perseverance. Even in his old age, he remained sharp and witty. When someone asked how he managed to stay calm in crises, he smiled and said, "I am always ready to meet my maker. Whether my maker is prepared for the great ordeal of meeting me is another matter." That was his charm. Fearless, humorous, and wise. As he grew older, his health began to decline. He suffered strokes, and his body weakened, but his mind never surrendered. He spent his final years surrounded by family, friends, and paintings, looking back at a life full of storms and victories. Winston Churchill passed away in 1965 at the age of 90. The whole world mourned him. His funeral was one of the largest in history. World leaders, soldiers, and citizens came to say goodbye to the man who refused to bow down to tyranny. He was laid to rest in Bladen, near his birthplace, where his journey had begun. Churchill's legacy still lives on. His words are quoted in classrooms, in movies, and in speeches all around the world. His courage continues to inspire generations. He taught us that true strength is not the absence of fear, but the will to keep going despite fear. He showed that one man's voice, if filled with truth and courage, can move millions. He reminded us that leadership is not about comfort. It's about standing tall when everything else falls apart. His life is a reminder to every person who struggles, fails, or feels alone, that the path of greatness is never easy. You will face defeat, you will face doubt, but if you keep walking, keep believing, and keep fighting, you will rise. He said, "If you're going through hell, keep going." And that one sentence has inspired millions across decades, because no matter who you are, no matter where you are, the lesson remains the same. Never give up, never lose hope, never stop believing in your strength. Winston Churchill was not perfect. He had flaws, he made mistakes, but he never surrendered his courage. And that's what made him one of the greatest leaders in history. Today, when the world feels dark or uncertain, remember his story. Remember that hope can survive even in the darkest night. And remember that one person with faith and fire in their heart can change the course of history. Because courage is contagious. And Churchill's courage still echoes through time, reminding us all to stand firm, speak brave, and never, ever give up. That was Winston Churchill, the lion who never gave up.